He'll sign the house too. He still thinks she loves him. They called it a closure dinner. I was on my way back from the restroom when I heard it. My ex-mother-in-law, Regina, on speakerphone, laughing softly behind the bathroom door. Name is Michael, 47. Environmental field technician. She was dividing up my life while I waited for dessert. I walked back to the table. 6 chairs, 5 filled, hers still empty. Helena sat with her hands folded, palms pressed together like she was waiting for a prayer to end. Lucas, her brother, stirred his wine absently. The lawyer clicked his pen once, then again. The mediator offered a thin smile as I took my seat. The waiter approached. Would you like to review the documents now, sir, or after the entree? I didn't answer. I reached for the knife. Cut one slow slice through the steak. Medium rare. They'd remembered. Chewed once. Swallowed. Then I asked, did she write about what happened at the cabin? Helena blinked. The lawyer shifted in his seat. Lucas exhaled through his nose, shallow and sharp. They all looked toward the hallway. Regina reappeared. Fresh lipstick. Calm expression. Excuse me, she said lightly, smoothing her scarf. I need to fix my makeup. She turned and walked back. She never came back. No one followed her. No one spoke. The silence at the table grew thick and still, like dust in a sealed room. I cut another piece of steak, ate slowly. The wine glass to my right remained untouched. The mediator cleared his throat. We understand this is delicate, Michael. There's no pressure, just a clean resolution. He pushed a folder slightly closer to me on the table. Helena didn't look up. You've had time to review the terms, the lawyer said. There's nothing unusual, just formalizing what's already agreed. I nodded once. Not to him, just to the room. A movement to acknowledge noise. The knife moved. Through another slice. I wiped the blade against the edge of the plate. You're asking me to sign over everything. Only what was shared, Lucas said quickly. No one's trying to hurt anyone. I looked at him, then looked away. The cabin was mine, I said. She said you agreed it would go to her, the lawyer replied. She said a lot of things. It's not about the cabin, Helena finally said. I looked at her. Then why is it in the folder? No one answered. Outside the window it had started to rain. Fine lines against the glass. No sound, just motion. Inside they were all waiting. The lawyer opened the folder, turned it toward me. We brought a notary, he's right outside. You can sign tonight, we'll file in the morning. I picked up the glass, held it without drinking. And if I don't, no one spoke. Not right away. This was meant to be amicable, the mediator said. A mutual parting. Civil. Civil, I repeated. Is that what we're calling this? Helena looked at the tablecloth. Lucas shifted again. I placed the glass back down. Regina seems nervous. The lawyer started to speak, then stopped. I cut one last piece of steak, smaller than the others. Chewed slowly. Did she write it down? Helena looked up sharply. What? What happened at the cabin? I folded my napkin. Set it beside the plate. You should check her notes before this moves forward. No one moved. No one asked what I meant. They knew enough to be afraid and not enough to be sure. 10 minutes passed before anyone stood. The mediator packed the folder carefully. The lawyer mumbled something about revisions. Lucas offered a handshake I didn't take. Helena walked out last. She stopped at the end of the table, rested her fingers on the chair. You don't have to make this difficult, I looked at her. You already did. She left. The room was empty now, just the waiter clearing plates, moving slowly, avoiding my eyes. I finished the wine, tucked the pen they'd left on the folder into my jacket pocket, walked out without looking back. I met Helena at a city planning conference. Not exactly a romantic setting, but then again, I wasn't looking for romance. Just a clean conversation and someone who didn't mind silence. She worked in urban development, talked fast, thought faster. I liked that. 6 months in, she started leaving things at my place. A toothbrush, a scarf, her dog. A year later, We got married at her mother's house, Regina's house. It was a quiet ceremony. Backyard, string lights, catered brunch. Regina cried during the vows. "He's the most dependable man I've ever met," she told her friends that day. Finally, someone who keeps this family grounded. That became my role, the one who fixed faucets, managed taxes, checked basements for mold, the man who showed up when others didn't. Helena called it reliability. Regina called it useful. We bought the house 2 years into the marriage. Small place. Good bones. She wanted open space and modern design. I renovated every room myself over the next 5 years. She wanted new appliances. Got them. She wanted her office redone. I built it. She wanted her brother to stay with us, just for a while. Lucas stayed 9 months. Every request came with a promise. Just until the studio takes off. Just until Mom gets back on her feet. Just until we figure out what's next. Next never came, only more of the same. The cabin wasn't part of the marriage. It came from my grandfather, tucked into the hills 3 hours north. No internet, no neighbors. I kept it simple. 1 room, wood stove, tools on the wall, fishing gear by the door. Helena called it primitive. Regina called it outdated. I called it mine. It was the only thing that had my name on it, and mine alone. At least until that weekend. Helena said she needed a reset, wanted to get away from the noise. We drove up late on a Friday. I brought firewood. She brought her laptop and 3 bottles of wine. The first night was quiet. The second, not so much. She cried for 2 hours. Said she felt like she was drowning. Said I didn't understand her anymore. Said Regina was pressuring her to secure the future. I didn't ask what that meant. She asked me to sign a document she'd drafted, just in case something happened to her. "It's not a transfer," she said. "It's just permission for me to list the cabin as part of our financial disclosures for a project." She sat on the edge of the bed when she asked. No tears that time, just calm. I signed it. Then I went outside and split firewood for an hour. The next morning she left early. Said she had a meeting back in the city. Said she'd be back next weekend. She didn't come back. And she never asked about the old field notebook I kept under the floorboard. The one I found years ago, filled with my grandfather's handwriting. That's where I kept the copy of her draft and something else she didn't know she left behind. A single sheet of paper, handwritten, folded twice. A note, not addressed to me, not signed, but in her handwriting. And I read it, twice. Then I put it back. Didn't tell anyone, didn't ask, just waited. By the time I returned to the city, the shift had begun. Helena was distant. Regina was suddenly involved in our financial planning. Lucas had moved out but now handled Helena's studio logistics. Dinner conversations turned into strategic updates. The tone changed. But I didn't. I went to work, came home, fixed what needed fixing, and paid attention. They thought I was just quiet. They forgot I was also listening. Helena didn't come back to the cabin. That was the first clear sign. She sent a message 2 days later. "Sorry, work got heavy. Next weekend?" The weekend never came. I didn't push. I cleaned the place top to bottom, repaired the gutter, sharpened the axe. Then I drove home and waited. 2 weeks passed. Then I got an email. Not from her, but from a family attorney, requesting a formal inventory of our shared assets to facilitate a peaceful transition. No mention of divorce, no explanation, just transition. When I called Helena, she didn't answer. When I called again, the number went to voicemail. Regina texted me the next day. "Let's stay civil. There's no reason to make this harder than it needs to be. No explanation, no apology, no mention of what I'd signed, just smooth language and veiled instruction." I went quiet, started checking the details. The cabin had been added to a business filing under a consulting entity Helena had registered. 2 weeks after our weekend, up north. The house we shared was now under review for equitable reassignment, based on a claim of financial dependency, her dependency. Our joint accounts were frozen, pending clarification. My name was still on everything, but I was already gone from the picture. I tried to call Lucas. He answered. Briefly, "Michael, it's not personal. This is just structure. Everyone's trying to protect their interests." "Whose interests?" I asked. "Look, I don't know all the details. Mom's handling most of it. Just talk to a lawyer, okay?" Then he hung up. That week, 3 friends stopped returning my calls. 2 neighbors waved but didn't say hello. 1 colleague from work asked me if I was doing okay after what he'd heard. I asked what he'd heard. He didn't answer. The bay. Pressure wasn't loud. It didn't come all at once, but it came daily. A message here, a rumor there. Documents stacked on my porch with sticky notes. Just sign and we can all move on. Helena filed the divorce petition quietly, without confrontation. She didn't serve it directly. She had a courier drop it at my office while I was in a meeting. My assistant handed me the envelope without looking me in the eye. Inside was a clean, packaged divorce petition transfer request for the house cession of rights to the cabin and a note. "This is the fairest version. We hope you'll agree." No signature. The next day I found out my credit card had been frozen, then my access to the shared cloud drive where we stored all household documents, gone. Photos disappeared from the shared albums. Login credentials changed. When I logged into the tax portal, there was a new entry. Filed by spouse, joint declaration requested. They were quick. Too quick. They'd planned this long before that weekend. I didn't call anyone. Didn't yell. Didn't even confront her. I printed everything. Labeled it. Stored it in a fireproof case in the back of my closet. Then I visited the cabin. The draft she'd left, the one I signed that night, was still there, in the old notebook under the floorboard. But now it had context. Now I understood the date, the timing, the language. It wasn't a temporary authorization. It was the first move, a trigger, designed to look harmless, but legally loaded. I unfolded the page again. Right behind it was the note she didn't mean to leave. Still folded, still clean. I didn't read it this time. I already knew what it said. 3 days later, I received the invitation to the dinner from Lucas, handwritten. "Let's close this chapter with grace. One evening. Just us. One signature." I stared at the card for a full minute, then placed it in the same folder with the petition. Didn't respond. Just showed up. I didn't RSVP the dinner. I just showed up. Black shirt. No tie. Jacket with an inside pocket. Nothing in my hands. Everything I needed was already in place. The night before, I'd driven to the cabin one last time. Rain had washed the trail clean. The trees were quiet. No wind. Just stillness. I pulled up the floorboard under the stove, took out the notebook, opened the draft she'd had me sign, studied every word. Then I unfolded the note. Still unsigned, still vague. But it was her handwriting, her phrasing, her guilt. I hate this. I hate what she's making me do. One sentence. That's all I needed. Back in the city, I met with Tom, a friend who used to work in title verification. He helped me match the dates between her business filing and the weekend at the cabin. They aligned too perfectly, too neatly. He looked at the document. If they use this to validate ownership for collateral or partnership, it's vulnerable, especially if you can show you didn't give informed consent. I nodded. That's what this is now. I went to the registry office the next morning, reviewed the public entries, found the cabin listed under a pending transfer. Request, Helena's name, not mine. I requested a temporary hold. Dispute pending. Standard protocol when ownership is contested. They flagged it. Wouldn't stop the process permanently, but it would slow them down. That was enough. The dinner was held in a private room of a French restaurant. Dim lights, white tablecloths. The kind of place people use to pretend everything's fine. Helena wore a black blazer. Lucas had a new haircut. Regina's seat was empty. As always, they didn't ask if I wanted anything to drink, just assumed I'd go along. The waiter placed a folder beside my plate. The lawyer leaned in. Once we finalize this, all pending claims. Dissolve. Mutual release, no further review. I cut the steak. One slow slice. Did she write about what happened at the cabin? That's when Regina returned from the hallway. Fresh lipstick, controlled smile. Excuse me, she said, smoothing her scarf. I need to fix my makeup. She turned and left. She never came back. After the dinner, I went home and scanned the note, saved it 3 times, uploaded it to 3 drives. Then I contacted someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Rachel, a paralegal I used to help with land surveys. Sharp, quiet, obsessed with paper trails. I sent her the draft and the note, told her nothing else. 2 days later, she called back. This isn't just a personal letter, it's context, and it matters. Can I use it? Not yet, but you can hint at it. That's all I need. The next morning, Helena's lawyer emailed a revised version of the petition, more aggressive, tighter deadlines, less margin for response. Attached was a formal request for discovery limitations, a move used when someone knows a piece of evidence exists but wants to avoid seeing it admitted. They were nervous. They didn't know what I had, but they knew I had something. Then came the counterstrike. My employer received an anonymous message, allegations of emotional instability, domestic tension, possible substance use. None of it true, but enough to trigger a compliance review. Was placed on administrative leave pending clarification. That same afternoon, my truck was keyed. No note, no witnesses, just a clean line across the driver's door. I didn't report it, didn't fix it either. I left it there. A scar. A reminder. I went silent again, watched their moves, let them tighten the noose they'd already started. But the hold I placed on the cabin transfer triggered a notification. They'd tried to push it through again, this time using a proxy, signer. That was a mistake. Forgery opens the door to more than just civil conflict. Now it was criminal. I didn't file anything yet. Just waited. Let them act. Let them press. Let them walk into the net themselves. They called for an emergency meeting. Neutral. Ground. Law office. Conference room with glass walls and bottled water no one touched. Helena sat across from me. Regina didn't show. Lucas stood near the window, pacing. The lawyer looked younger than before. Nervous, already flipping through a thin folder, with nothing useful inside. My lawyer didn't speak, just placed one envelope on the table. Closed, unlabeled. The mediator cleared his throat. Mr. Langley, our position remains. This is a misunderstanding. Nothing malicious. I said nothing. The cabin transfer was assumed to be part of the shared portfolio. Assumed by who? I asked. By your spouse and her team, based on the signed document from earlier this year. My lawyer nodded. Opened the envelope. Pulled out a copy of the draft, then pulled out the note. Not the original, just a photo. Enlarged, dated, unfolded. Helena's handwriting clear in the center. I hate this. I hate what she's making me do. No one spoke. What is that? The lawyer asked. Context, my lawyer said. That could be anything. Could be, I said, but it isn't. Do you plan to submit this formally? No. Then why bring it here? To end this. Helena looked away. Lucas stopped pacing. You don't want the cabin, I said. You want silence. You want it over? We want a resolution, the mediator said quickly. I nodded. Then here it is. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a separate document, a counter-proposal, not a threat, not a demand, just a clean transfer agreement. I keep the cabin, I relinquish claim to the house. No alimony, no exposure of the note, no mention of the forgery attempt. Her lawyer read it in silence. Lucas looked confused. Helena read it slowly. Twice, she finally spoke. Why are you offering this? I reached into my jacket but paused, touched the folded note once more. I'd read it again that morning, not to remember her, but to remember my choice. Then I looked at her. Because I could have destroyed you with that note. With what I know. That's why I won't. She She said nothing. You wanted to rewrite the story. I'm just writing the ending. My lawyer slid a pen across the table. Helena hesitated, then signed. Lucas sat down. The room stayed quiet. Regina never showed. As we stood to leave, the mediator tried to thank me for my grace under pressure. I ignored it. Helena looked at me one last time. Was there more than just that note? I looked her in the eye. You'll never know. Then I walked out. 2 days later, the signed agreement was filed. The hold on the cabin was lifted. Back, in my name. The house gone. The marriage over. Nothing public, no scandal, no statement, just a clean break without debris. 3 weeks after that, I got a message from Regina. You could have made this worse for all of us. I didn't reply. 1 month later, a realtor called about the cabin, said he heard I might be selling. I said no. Then hung up. I made coffee. Sat on the porch, watched the tree line shift in the wind. Didn't say a word. Michael wins. Without burning anything. I didn't change the locks. I didn't repaint the walls. Didn't throw out the jacket I wore to the dinner. I just drove back to the cabin. 3 hours. 1 gas stop. No music. The gravel road was wet when I arrived. Pine needles scattered like memory. I opened the door. Same creak in the hinge, same smell of wood and dust and quiet. No one had been there since me. Exactly the way I left it. I spent the next morning fixing the back steps. Loose boards, water damage, nothing urgent. Still needed doing. Later I stacked the firewood. The pile had leaned too far to the left. I rebuilt it. Symmetrical this time. Stable. I wasn't in a rush. Inside, I cleared the table. Burned the old papers I no longer needed. Not the note. That I sealed in a plastic sleeve. Found the old tin box from my grandfather's toolkit. Slid the note inside. Then I pulled up the floorboard under the stove. Slow, careful. Placed the box inside, screwed it shut, not to hide it. To remind myself where silence lives and what it costs to earn it. I made coffee at noon. Black. Hot. No sugar. Sat on the porch. Same chair. Same view. No phone in hand. No one to message. No one to explain anything to. That night, I made a fire. Read half a page of an old book I'd started 3 years ago. Didn't finish the chapter. Didn't need to. I didn't rebuild everything. Just enough. Enough to hold. Enough to rest. A week later, I drove into town. Got groceries. Nodded at 2 people I hadn't seen in months. One waved. One looked away. That was fine. On the way back, I stopped by a ridge 5 miles north, chopped a branch that had fallen across the path, cleared it, walked a few steps further than usual, found a spot with better light. I'll build something there one day, or maybe not. For now, I'm just here. Breathing, quieter, drinking hotter coffee. She never came back. Neither did I. The Gentleman's Revenge isn't loud, but it's always personal. If this felt personal, make it personal. Subscribe now, and don't miss tomorrow's story.